prejudgment. Have you ever been guilty of prejudgment? We all have, right? And so the very first thing that we have to look at is, what exactly does that mean? What is prejudgment or judgment? Well, to prejudge is to what? It means that I didn't take the time to get the facts. I didn't really care enough to get the facts, so I just made a judgment. That's not a regular judgment. That's a prejudgment. See, our judgment was based on assumptions, not on reality. And we all know what they say about assumptions, right? It makes something out of you and I, right? And that I find that so true so many times. How many times have you made a judgment of someone or a prejudgment of someone and come to find out that it was absolutely nothing like you thought it was? Not a situation, not a person, not a personality. No, what we did is we decided that we were going to be in a place that we would make a judgment that in no way had any basis to it. So, what do we all know about making assumptions? Well, what is an assumption? That's the very biggest thing. And I'll be honest with you, I had to go back and look and see what exactly, because I want to know exactly what an assumption is. And what it is it's a belief taken granted. In other words, a belief that is so deep that I believe it beyond anything without any proof. Isn't that crazy? That I would stand behind something. I would believe in something so strong that I would act as though my life depended on it, and yet I have no proof that that's the truth. So why not? Why not prejudge others? Well, there's a reason to that. And one of the things we have to look at with that is if we do, it'll begin to affect our life and others. Now, how can prejudgment affect other people's lives? Well, it's simple. The fact is that let's put aside the damage it does to us. But how many times have you prejudged, or have I prejudged someone, and I went as far as to maybe slander that person without even realizing it? See, God takes it so serious, man, that he says that it's like murder. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? That slander, lying about someone else, is just like murdering them. And I get that because we've killed their reputation. I know that in my ninth step amends, I owed some people that amends. That I had one particular gentleman I remember that I was actually in management with his company, and we would have these sales meetings, and literally all that happened out of that was it was just a session to complain about his inadequacy to run this multi-million-dollar company, that somehow he had managed to do it successfully without our opinion. But we began to judge this man in such a way that I found out later on that when I was in business, first went into my last business, that I was making a lot of the same mistakes he did, and the same things that I had prejudged him for, I now was doing those things myself. One of the hardest things I ever had to do was call this man up and say, you know what, I said a lot of things about you, and they weren't true, and I realized that later. And the very things that I judged you for, I actually am going through right now. And in love, he said, my only regret is that you didn't actually learn from my mistakes. See, that's what you call a brother, right? Someone who didn't get upset. Because you know why? He was secure in what he did. Well, I wasn't the first person to ever prejudge him. And so he'd been through that, you know? And here's the thing, if I keep prejudging people, how can I carry the message or any message that's formed out of a prejudgment? In other words, how can I be that person who is able to affect someone else's life if I've already begun to make judgments about that person, right? Or maybe, just maybe, they're smart enough not to listen to me because I've judged someone else and talked to them about it. Man, not only is that slander, but that's gossip. And let me help you with that one. You start gossiping about others, what you're going to begin to find is how much you begin to reap it back on yourself. You see, how can I be the best sponsor that I can be if I'm going to discuss issues with other sponsees with another sponsee? Can't do it. So if they hear me gossip about somebody, the question they got to ask themselves legitimately is, how much can I trust this dude? If you sit there and go, oh, don't worry, I don't ever say anything about you. Oh my God, guess what? That is, let me go ahead and interpret that. As soon as I get through here, I'm hauling somewhere to go talk about you, right? That's the truth in this. But you see, the problem is that God can't work through that either. Papa God can't handle that. He can handle it, he just won't reward, right? Through that whole thing. So how can I help someone else that I have already expected them to fail? See, I've already made prejudgment. How many times have I seen people walk into the room and I know for a fact they're not going to make it? You see, what I remember when I first came in was this young punk kid sitting in a meeting full of a bunch of old people talking about how they spilt more alcohol than that person had drank. And so what I told them when they told me that was, alcohol was pretty important to me. Matter of fact, maybe you're not the alcoholic because I never spilt any. It was too precious, right? And so I went through that. You see, they prejudged me. You'll never make it. I don't know. Seem to be doing okay now. And I sit there and I think to myself, there was this doc, right? There was this doctor who had a back injury on a bike, and they went in and they nicked his spine. And he lost his practice. He lost everything. He was disabled at that point. And had been in a wheelchair and actually had worked his way out of that and those kind of things. And this guy was the most negative dude you'd ever met in your life. Just Mr. Negativity, you know. It's like, you ever seen somebody that the gray cloud just seems to follow? That was this dude, right? And so he would sit there and he'd come to meetings, and it was like, I mean, we would sometimes affectionately call him Eeyore. And man, this dude could put a damper on an entire meeting of gratitude, right? It could be on gratitude, he'd make it bad. And so one day this guy's walking towards me, and he had that look in his eye. You know what look I'm talking about, right? Anybody's been in here for any period of time, that look on, I need a sponsor. And I'm sitting down, and I'm kind of looking everywhere but at him. And I'm like going, no, God. No, God. No. And then he turns the other way. I was like, whew. Not prejudge this guy, right? And then he turns back around me, he goes, hey, I need a sponsor, and I think you'd be the one. And I'm like, and my heart's going, no, as my mouth's going, okay. Because you see, that's what we have to do, because God's going to put that in our heart to do the right thing. My point is, this guy started getting better and better. And everything I started getting him to do, he started doing those assignments and doing those things. And now I'm sitting there, because I literally had gone to my sponsor and go, I don't know why I'm sponsoring this dude, because he ain't going to make it. He just ain't going to make it. And Dwight said something so incredible to me. He said, do you know his backstory? Yeah, I know he's a doc. I know he got hurt. I know, you know. He goes, can you imagine how bitter he must feel to be in his late 30s and lose it all? Lose his practice, loses everything. He said, can you imagine what emotional pain this man must be in? Oh, wow. And I would see, he would run every day. This guy would run 5 and 6 miles a day, and the reason being was it was the only way to get any relief at all from the pain. And he wasn't taking drugs. He wasn't drinking. He wasn't doing those things. You understand? I mean, this man was in pain. And the more that I began to understand that, the more I began to understand his story. And that's the first thing. A lot of us prejudge without understanding the story. We don't understand who this person is. I watched this guy stay sober a long time. He ended up moving to Florida. But I realized, who was I to make an assumption that he was just a miserable schmo? And so my sponsor taught me something very important that day. Begin to do your due diligence. Begin to ask questions. Ask questions with an open mind. Begin to try to understand where that person's coming from, how they're affected by things that happened in their life. I just made a prejudgment. A preconceived opinion formed without any knowledge of this man's background, his amount of pain. So you can always look for a reason to judge. Believe me, dude, you can always find a reason to judge, right? Because after all, they've done something to me, or, you know what I'm saying? Oh my goodness. Actually, let me help you with that. It's called human nature, right? We always try. Why is that? Why do we find the need to judge? Well, for me, it's because I got to find something in you that I have something better so that I can make my lousy self feel better. Instead of just going, who am I, God? Who do you say I am? That's a lot to take on. Is that somehow I have more of a right to judge you than the creator of the universe does. Boy, that puts me in a unique position. Don't call me God all at once. Right. Of course, I am dyslexic. I would say, I am dog. No, I'm kidding. So we have to look at the outside, because a lot of times when we're so busy looking at the outside that we miss the actual revelation Papa God is trying to teach us. See, we can get so tied up in the judgment that we don't hear the message. So I remember there was this guy at a clubhouse downtown that I went to for years. His name was James. And James was an interesting guy. He was, you would think he was homeless. He was always loud when he would talk. Just an interesting guy, right? And the crazy thing is that he would always say the same thing at every meeting. And it would be very short. He'd say, my name is James. Don't drink. And always do the next right thing. It works. Thank you. That was it. That was his share. Every time. Sometimes he'd say, my doctor tells me, don't drink. It's like, great, James. But you know what? One night I was in a really bad place. I didn't even go to that meeting, but I went that night because you know what? I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue this any longer. I wasn't sure. I couldn't deal with what I was going through, not another day. And I heard James say, don't drink. And that was exactly what I was thinking about. And do the next right thing. And that was forgiveness. I had to forgive someone that was so important to me for something that I felt like they had done to me. Man, we start picking up resentments. It's amazing, isn't it? And let me tell you something. I'm going to go ahead and just say this. When you are busy judging other people all the time, you're also getting yourself set up for resentment 100% of the time. That's where resentments come from. Because you see, if I judge you, I will pick up an offense against you. Because I don't know about many people, but I haven't gone through a lot of these people and gone, wow, you know what? You're a great human being. I just judged that. You're a great human being, right? No, normally for me, the only time that kind of thing happened, I'd be sitting in a meeting, right? And I'm like, this is back a long time ago when I was single, and I'd be like, ooh, wow, look who just walked through the door. Huh, she looks really good. You know what? I could date her. Yeah, I could actually marry her, right? And then it'd be like, yeah, marry her, right? Then she's going to cheat on me. And the next thing you know, I'm going to be divorced. And then when I'd pass her leaving at in the end of the night, she may say hello, and I go, yeah, right. Right? Or the other thing I do is I would pick out somebody and go, ooh, they're the one. And build this whole fantasy life up. And they would go up and pick up their 30-day chip. Right? I would always I always tended to find the sickest one in the group. So the point is that every time we judge, we step out of God's will and step into our own self-centeredness. So I needed to not only hear that, I needed to really hear it. It's almost like God opened my ears that night and something changed. Or maybe it's people can't listen to a message because somebody has preached before with Satan sucks. And maybe they got so into, oh, that's offensive to me, that they couldn't hear God loves you no matter what. See, we have to be careful in those judgments. And I used to be one of those people. You know what people I'm talking about, right? I was that guy. Always the one looking for something not to like. In other words, I was critical. Now, I know nobody else in here has ever been critical before. But I was. And it's interesting, the big book addresses this. And it says it is, actually from the first edition, that it is a contempt prior to investigation. Wow, that's even more awesome. So it comes out of the first edition, but this right here comes from a story called The Artist, right? Yeah, thank you. And so anyway, so we still use that term today in recovery, contempt prior to investigation. What does that really mean? It means I already made up my mind before I even take a look at this. Yeah, right? How many times have we done that? Not just about things, but about people. I don't know why I don't like you. I just don't like you. I don't get a good vibe from you. Contempt prior to investigation. Or you can change your entire thinking. And you know what that's called? That's called a confirmation bias. So what does confirmation bias mean, right? So here it is. It means that I'm always looking to be reassured for the decision I made. In other words, it's like when I wake up believing that Papa God is for me and is always for me, then all of a sudden I start looking for the evidence, and that's called find your miracle. And one thing that Dwight would tell me all the time is he'd go, Brother Paul. Don't know why he called me that, but that's what he called me. He'd go, Brother Paul, you know if I don't love you, there ain't a dog in Georgia. But he'd say, but always remember, son, he'd say, there's a miracle every day. You just got to find it. It's already happening, but you just got to find it. He said, it may be the parking place in front of the very front parking place in front of the coffee shop. And I kid you not, for like, well, you were with me, you've been with me before. Yeah, I love this one particular coffee shop down in Atlanta on Ponce, right? And it's got like 6 parking spaces for 100 people. You know what I'm saying? I can't tell you how many that I'd be praying and going, God, I'm looking for my miracle. And somebody'd be backing out, and there's the front, right? Or he'd say, it may be the fact that somebody called you from years ago. And he's right. I would have people do that. I mean, things become amazing when you start looking for them. When you stop judging what is wrong and start looking for what is good. That's miracle. And quite frankly, the biggest miracle in that was the fact that I quit looking for the bad in everything. How many of us do that? But how about this? It's when you start believing that all things work together for people who really trust God. If you really trust him and you really do what you're supposed to, trust God, clean house, and do the next right thing, all of a sudden things begin to change in our life. So even that means, and this is the crazy part, even when we screw things up, he still loves us. He still makes it work out. Or how about this? I made the wrong decision. When I just made the wrong decision. Isn't that amazing? How many times has that happened to y'all? I thought I was making the right decision. Using this constantly. The reason that we think that we made the right decision is because we tried to make it on our own without his input. And yet he still works it out. Or how about, I just didn't understand. Thank you. Test. Here we go. No more technical difficulties. All right. Or like I said, or sometimes maybe you just didn't understand. And that's happened to me quite a few times. I thought this is what they wanted, but what they really wanted was something entirely different. Right? So is there a time to judge? Well, let's see what Matthew 7, 1 through 3 says. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. All right, hold on to that for a second. Think about this. Do not judge others and you will not be judged. Okay, that's pretty simple. If I don't judge you, I won't get judged. But is that 100% what it's saying? For you will be treated as you treat others. Oh, maybe it is okay for me to judge certain situations. But I got to be willing to be treated that way. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. And why worry about the speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own eye, right? In other words, how about this? You know what it's like to look and judge others based on the issues, the log, the issues in my heart and in my eye. In other words, I can't see them the way they're supposed to be seen because I'm too busy looking through my own issues. But again, is it okay to judge? Well, there are sometimes you need to make judgment calls. You shouldn't always let your kids go hang out with certain people. You need to look at their character. But if you're going to do those things, the first question you have to ask yourself is, do I hold myself to a standard? Is there a certain standard that I'm willing to hold myself? Because it says you're going to be held to the same standard that you hold others, right? So do I hold myself there? That also means, do you truly walk in integrity? In other words, am I judging someone just because I can and because I want to? Or am I judging someone through integrity and saying, not saying I'm better than that, saying is that, and again I'll use kids, is that the type of people I want my children to be with or to hang with? Now the funny thing is the world takes that and what do they say? Love everyone. Everyone should just coexist. And it's like, that's a lie. That's a lie. You see, if I'm willing to walk in integrity, part of integrity means that I got to also hold others to a level of integrity. So do you truly love your neighbor as you want them to truly love you? Or do you judge your neighbor as you are willing to be judged? Wow. So what are you saying? I'm saying you got to be willing to put yourself and hold yourself accountable. You have to be so transparent with certain people in your life that you allow them to speak into your life. You allow them to look at you and say, you know what? I believe that you're trying to do the right thing, but you're missing the mark. Had people come to me years ago and say, you're not treating your family right. I know how to treat my family. You hear the anger? I know how to treat my family. I'm a good provider. Well, I was. I just sucked at being a parent, right? Because I couldn't understand that I did not have to work 100 hours a week to provide. See, that was the value, but that was also the lie. I could have done the same thing in less time and just loved my others, loved my kids, loved my wife, loved those people. But the thing is, It's easy to move from prejudgment to something else that's very close. You know what that's called? I become very prejudiced. You see, most prejudgment comes from being prejudiced. So what makes us prejudiced? Usually it's something in our past. It's either the way that we were educated or the way that maybe the environment we grew up in. Maybe something happened to another member of our family, and so all of a sudden we don't like any of those type of people, whoever those are. But also, maybe something happened to you, and now you've grouped everybody together that fits that description. But here's the big one. Have you ever felt in your life that someone has had prejudice against you? I think we all have on some level. I did. I can relate to that one. And it was because I was told how retarded I was. And I know that's not the proper term anymore, but I'm using it back then, and that's what I was called. And the thing is, I believed it. So what I started doing was I fought anybody that wanted to fight, because I would show you that's physically better. I would play sports better than anybody. Until one day, somebody hit me with some word. I didn't even know what it meant. Halukia or something. And finally I was able to read it, and it said dyslexia. And I went, wow. So what you're telling me is that I don't see things the way everybody else sees them. I don't even reason the same way that everyone else reasons. Now, let me tell you something that's absolutely phenomenal about that. I outthink most people, and I usually find a better way to do it and a quicker way to do it. How about that? Actually, I'm not crazy. I'm not mentally challenged. What I am is gifted. And the more I started understanding that, the less I needed to judge others. You see, what I found was that I was okay. That God actually gave me a gift. I just didn't realize it was a gift at the time. Today, I believe it is, and I'm okay with that. So here we are. So how can I battle against prejudgment? Simple, basically in 3 steps, right? First one is I got to start looking for the good in everybody. You will find good in a lot of people if you are looking for it. It's amazing how many times I've talked to my wife or another person or friends, and I go, that person is just, man, they are so special. I don't know what it is about them. Or, wow, they just have the prettiest smile or the prettiest eyes. You can just see the love. I didn't change. I mean, they didn't change. I changed. I changed the way I started looking at people. Oh, a whole lot less judgment that way. The second thing is you got to get real grateful to live your life that God gave you. Last night, I was in a meeting, and I picked up a chip last night. And it was significant. It's 45 years. And all I could think about was the topic that night. When, you go up, you get your chip, you say something. And all I could say was, I am grateful that God did not answer all my prayers. I'm grateful that the answer wasn't yes to all my prayers. How about that? Or even, let's get even clearer. I'm so grateful that certain things in my life did not work out the way I thought they should have worked out. God blessed me over and over and over. And so the thing is I look back at those years and I think to myself, I am grateful today that I get the opportunity to live a life like this. I mean, I think about it, because all I could think about last night was if God had answered everything yes that I thought he should do yes, I wouldn't have my 3 boys, wouldn't have my daughter, wouldn't have my daughter-in-laws, I wouldn't have my grandchildren. See, not only did he know better, he blessed me better. And that's what it's really all about, right? So everything you do with gratitude. Look at what You've gone through what you've done. And here's the deal. Be real grateful that you don't have to live anybody else's life, that you get to live the life that God gave you to live. Isn't that crazy? 2 Corinthians 5:17, and we'll end it with this. Says, this means that anyone who belongs to Christ, that would be me, has become a new person. You mean I don't have to let other people judge me by my past, by the stupid things I did? Why? Because I'm not that person. The old life is gone and a new life has begun. I got the opportunity. God literally reached in the depths of hell and pulled me out at a very young age and said, I'm going to give you another chance. I'm going to give you a chance to do things that you never could even conceive. Wow, what a life we get to live today. All right, let's go ahead and take it out. Who's the one person that never prejudges? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as I'm willing to forgive others that have trespassed against me. Lead us away from temptation. Deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.